working in Spring Boot, Spring JPA, Microservices, and currently I'm working with Wells Fargo client, and with ENY I've worked with three clients. So this is my third client actually. And prior
Okay.
to, yeah, so in this I have basically worked upon like soft check mechanism. So whenever there is any changes developers are committing, so we are just fetching the count of those vulnerabilities. Like if vulnerability count is 0, then only it will go for further deployment, or else it will not go further deployment. So those things I have worked upon. Prior to this in HSBC, I worked upon payment part, like payment matching and approval part. So I've written REST endpoints for that. So those things I worked upon. And prior to that, I worked with CGI. So there we have worked upon banking and financial domain projects, like somewhat taking the requirement in the form of CRs, and then resolved issues, production issues, or dev level issues. So those things we have worked upon. And first company was my startup company. So in that we have worked upon like education sector. So it was on SQL as well as on Java mix.
Perfect. Perfect. So okay. So overall, what total year experience you have?
I'm having around 6.10 years approx.
Perfect. Okay. Okay. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Okay. So let's start from the basic, right? Okay. So can you tell me quickly about your technical stack and all?
Yeah, so I worked upon like Spring JPA, Microservices, Oracle, MySQL, JUnit. So these things I worked upon.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Let's start from the basic. Okay.
Mhm.
Let's start from the Java first. Okay.
Okay.
So tell me how we choose any language, right? So you have maybe today we are working with Java, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have option of Python, PHP, and all.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you feel that how you take a decision to choose any language?
Yeah, so basically Java helps in garbage collection mechanism. So C++ doesn't have that. And whenever we have to work upon object based concept, and so it will be faster and more secured. Java is more secured, Java and Python. And Python is much of a user friendly language, and it's easy to understandable as well. So whenever we have to go for like AI ML kind of thing, so we are focusing much upon the Python part. So
Hmm.
yeah, so
Got it.
both are having their own pros and cons. So yeah,
Okay, 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 okay. So okay, tell me what. Okay, let's start. Can you tell me about object-oriented programming features and all in Java, and can try to explain all features we have?
yeah. So object-oriented principle consists of a lot of things. Like first is of object-based, so it contains classes and object type, and they are like encapsulation is there, inheritance is there, abstraction is there, polymorphism is there. So these are the main OOPS concept present. So it basically divides the complex problem into smaller subparts, and then it resolves them. So when I come about abstraction, so basically it hides the implementation details of the class and exposes only the behaviors which is required by the end user. So that is the abstraction. So in that there are three steps I think. So first is generalizing all the behaviors of the implementation class. Then we are storing the objects of that implementation class into interface reference, and with that reference we are calling the methods of the implementation class. So that are the three steps for abstraction. So Google Map is the example for abstraction. So next comes like inheritance. So inheritance actually it extends. If you want to get one class's property extended into another class, and in that scenario inheritance is helpful there. So there will be one class like class A, which is a super class, and then there's a class B which is child class. So if class B extends class A, then B becomes the child class, A becomes the super class. So like that inheritance concept comes, and a B class will extend and inherit all the properties from class A, and along with that if you add certain feature you can add it in class B. In inheritance there are like multiple types of inheritance, like single level inheritance, multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance, hierarchical inheritance. So those type of inheritance features are there. Then polymorphism comes. Polymorphism means one entity showing different behaviors at different places throughout the execution of the program. That is polymorphism. So it is basically of two types: compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. Compile time means binding that method declaration with method definition at compile time by the compiler. So method overloading is the best example for that. And for this runtime polymorphism is binding the method declaration with method definition at runtime by JV time polymorphism. So method override is the best example for that. So then comes the encapsulation. It basically binds the data members and function members together so that it encapsulates the data and increases the security. So a class is the inbuilt encapsulation example. So these are the
Okay, okay, okay. I got it. I got it. So, just a quick question: do you know what is the complexity of adding element in hash map?
yeah, adding elements in hash map is O of one, which is the best case scenario
Okay,
for fetching and getting
okay.
putting the data. Yeah, and
What
worst
is
case,
the?
yeah, tell.
Mm, please carry. What is the worst case?
Yeah, worst case is O of n time complexity when we have to fetch data from the
O
n
of
at O of n.
O of n. Okay, okay. Why O of n?
Because there can be a chance like all the data, all the key is lying onto the same bucket. So let's suppose there are 15
Okay.
buckets present, 15 index, and all the keys are having the same hash code. So in that scenario, it will lie on the same
Mm,
bucket. So if you want to fetch the data from the last bucket, sorry, last node,
mm,
so it will be going to each every node. So O of n time complexity.
got it. Got it. Got it. And okay, got it. So, can you tell me that do you any know the changes in a hash map we recently done to optimize this thing? Do you know aware about this feature? Any changes we have done?
Yeah, so after Java, it actually it checks for the threshold value. So after reaching a threshold value, it gets converted into a red black tree. Like if it reaches threshold of around 8, so it gets converted to red black tree. And any tree is having time complexity of O of log n because it divides
Mm,
into left and right tree like that. So that's why it reduces the time complexity. And once the number of nodes gets reduced before 8, like below 8, it will again get back to linked list format. So
perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. And okay, so okay, what is okay? What is the complexity of quicksort? Do you know?
quick sort. Okay, I think it is O of n log n. Hello.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Of and log n, right?
yes.
Okay, okay. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. Okay, so moving towards the okay, can you tell me the difference between hash set and hash map?
Yeah. So actually, hash set is a part of collection interface. Hash map is not a part of collection interface because it accepts data in key value pair, and hash set maintains uniqueness because it internally calls the hash map only, and whatever data is being stored in the hash set, it is being set as a key in the hash map. So we are adding only one data, but in hash map it stores data in the form of key value pair. So
Mhm.
Hasset internally implements hashmap only, but it is storing in different interfaces because the method of storing is different for both.
Mm. Can you come again? Can you tell the answer again, please?
Yeah, whole answer.
Can you again tell the difference?
Yeah, actually, HashSet is a part of collection interface. Okay, because
Okay.
it is a class which implements set interface. But HashMap is implementing map interface, which is not a part of collection interface. And HashSet in that, if there is a add method, in HashMap there is a put method to add the data. So in HashSet, if you are adding the data, it will accept one data and then it will be stored as a key in the HashMap. And in HashMap, if we are putting data, we have to store key as well as value. So like that we can store.
So what is the complexity of hash set?
Uh,
Adding element in hash set.
I think it's O of one.
Okay. Why it's over one? Or getting element also is over one.
Getting element in first case is O of n because it has to iterate through the entire loop, and then we can fetch the data if data is present
Are
based
you
on.
sure? Are you sure?
Uh, I think best case is O of one, but in worst case it may be O of n. But
Okay, 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 okay. So tell, do you know how the garbage collection work internally?
Uh, yeah, actually, in garbage collection, whenever a new object gets created, it gets into that heap space and the heap memory area. So in that, actually, there are two spaces. First is young gen and one is old gen. And whenever new object gets created, it gets into the Eden space. So there is sorry, young objects will be present. So there will be multiple objects. It will go first in young gen, and there will be like multiple some algorithms are there in garbage collection, like mark and sweep algorithm, correct mark and sweep algorithm. So it frequently checks like is there any reference pointing to that object which is newly created. So if it is there, after a certain threshold it will move to next space like survivor space. But if there is no reference pointing to any object, it will be removed by garbage collector. Then after frequent sweeping by a garbage collector, let's suppose there are certain object out of 10, one or two objects are there where still there are certain references pointing to that, then it will be moving to old gen. So old gen, there will be not much frequent sweeping by garbage collector, so it will be staying there in old gen. And so there is like mark and sweep algorithm is being there, which marks all the objects, and whenever it will observe like there are few objects which needs, there is no reference, it will sweep that. So this algorithm it implements.
Got it. Got it. Got it. And can you? Okay. So we have covered. Do you know what is weak hash map?
Uh, yeah, weak hash map is that hash map which is having a weak reference, and in that actually garbage collector will keep on checking like if there is any reference pointing to that hash map or not. So it will wait for certain threshold of time. After that, it will quickly remove that particular hash map object. So it is having weak reference. So it means that.
Okay. Okay. Do you know? Okay. So let's do some coding exercise. Okay. Are you comfortable with the recursions and all? Are you comfortable, or you are comfortable with zeros and numbers and all, like arrays and arrays? You want a question on arrays, and or you want a question on trees?
Uh, I think arrays will be more better. Trees also have solved a bit.
Arrays better.
Yes.
Okay, perfectly fine, perfectly fine. Let me share you, right? You have 20 minutes, right? You can see the time. Right now, 2:20 is there, right?
Okay.
So by 2:40, not 2:40 exactly, but before in 15, 20 minutes, you need to cover that. We have
Okay.
many other area to cover, right?
Okay.
Share the screen and please try to do this thing. Okay.
So you have to go to LeetCode platform.
Yeah, can you share the screen quickly first? Are you connected with your phone net?
No,
No. Okay, okay, fine, fine. Your screen is not visible yet. Okay.
it's hanging.
Meantime, it's loading and all, right? Okay, fine. So, other question I have, like, do you know Java 8 Stream API and all?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Um, uh, okay. Parallelly, it's loading and all. Can you tell me how to create immutable classes and all?
Yeah. So to create the immutable class, first we have to make the class as final so that no other class can subclass it. Then we can make use of that all the field members should be private and final type, so that no other class can change that variables. And then
Okay,
for all that mutable fields are there like array list and map, we should create a new instance and then set the data so that it maintains the immutable property.
okay,
So
okay, okay.
hello everybody. So I am Devjit Roy. So in this video, I will be discussing about my Altimetrik interview experience. So this is the second part of round one. Okay. So second part actually I haven't recorded because there was some network issue there. So that's why I've created a PPT. I've just accustomed all the questions together at one place so that I will help you with what all sort of question has been asked. Okay. So let me share my screen. So I hope you can see my video. So this is Altimetrik round one. So this was the first question. Like what all methodologies have you followed? Like have you followed agile methodology or have you followed scrum methodology? What all methodology have you followed? So it's like a basic set of rules and principles that you follow in your test driven development, and in that actually, yeah, what all principles and mechanism you follow from starting from development until the delivery. Okay, so what all things you follow in day-to-day basis, so those things you have to explain in agile methodology, what all things you are doing. Okay, then comes second question, like, have you worked on Jenkins and written script on that? If yes, then how it works? So these things are very common. Actually, they are expecting DevOps work also. They are expecting to know more about build and deployment processes, how Jenkins are working, how your code are getting deployed, okay, in harness or in PCF, how that deployment process is happening, how it is going through that script. So those things they are expecting more. So you can just go through that once, okay, in Jenkins, how build and deployment is working. And we are writing a certain kind of script, okay, in Jenkins script file is there. In that there are certain conditions are written, like under what condition this environment will be deployed, okay. So those conditions will be there based upon the region, based upon the branch. So those things are there in the script. So you have to go through that once. So these are things they will expect from you. And then how you are doing the deployment of your code in of your project, how you are doing the deployment of your project. So those things they will be expecting from you. Okay, so these are the basic questions that will be asking. Next came this question. There was a lead code question that was asked to me. So like max consecutive ones. So here actually there were maximum number of consecutive months are there. There is a binary array num which are provided, and there is an integer k. Okay, and we have to return the maximum number of consecutive ones in the array. So there is a catch over here. So we have to find maximum number of consecutive ones, but we have to flip at most k zeros. So we can flip at most maximum of k zeros. So here k is given as 2. So where should I make changes here so that it will give maximum number of consecutive ones? So here is 2. So from last, if you see 0, I can replace it by 1, and then last sixth character is 0. So there also I can replace it by 1. So it will give me the longest consecutive one. Okay, so longest consecutive one length is 6. Okay, so like that we can do that. So how can we proceed ahead with this? It's a medium level lead code question that was asked to me to implement directly there. So I've implemented that with a hint. So interviewer has given some hint. So after that I proceeded. So here we have to implement sliding window pattern. Okay, so we have to keep on sliding and we have to keep track on one, like how many times it's getting one, and we have to flip 0 as well wherever we are getting 0, and then we have to see the count of ones as well. So both we have to track it, actually left and right pointer we have to take. So try to do it by your own. Okay, so if you want me to create dedicated video on this, then also I can help you with that. Okay, so I want you to try it by your own. It's a very good question on sliding window. So it's there is an algorithm which works on this, like sliding window pattern. So there is a window that we have to assign between a particular left pointer to right pointer, and that should get slided. Okay, so width will increase or decrease based upon the requirement of flipping. So based on that concept, we have to implement this. So if you don't know sliding windows, first learn that sliding window algorithm, and then proceed ahead to implement this question. Okay, so going ahead, now the next question was, have you worked upon AWS or not? Okay, so this is a very common question they will be asked. So you should have the basic knowledge of AWS, like how are you creating EC2 instances? Have you worked upon serverless computing like Lambda or not? So how many ways to work upon serverless computing? So those things, basic questions they will be asking you. Okay. Next question was singleton design pattern, and what is singleton design pattern and how have you implemented? So these questions are asked in almost every interview. Okay, 9 out of 10 interview they will ask this. So if there is a question on design pattern, they will ask either singleton design pattern or factory design pattern or abstract factory design pattern or builder design pattern. These questions are very common. Okay, so you should be very much prepared on that, and you should prepare on strategy as well as behavior design pattern as well. So there few patterns are very commonly asked. One is strategy design pattern. Okay, and one is facade design pattern. So those are behavioral design patterns. So those are also very important. Okay, so prepare for it. Okay, and then how can you break the singleton design pattern? This is also very much asked. So first they will tell you to write the code for singleton design pattern, and then they will tell you like what are the ways through which you can break your singleton design pattern. So there are three ways. If you have if you have gone through the core concepts, then you will be knowing on this. Like first way is through constructor. Through reflection, you can break the constructor. Okay, and how can you resolve it? You can resolve it with the help of either enum. You can make use of enum instead of class, or else you can check the condition. Like if reference is not null, then you can throw some illegal state exception you can throw. Then it will not be allowed to create an object using reflection. So that is the way you can help break from reflection. Then another way is during deserialization. Okay, so while serializing you can check the hash code, and while deserializing you can compare the hash code. You will see that hash code is mismatch. So from there you will get to know that it is breaking the singleton design pattern concept due to deserialization. Okay, so for that you need to implement read resolve method. Okay, so there is a method called read resolve method. You have to implement that, and then you have to return the reference from that particular method. Then this particular problem will be resolved. And third way is implementing clonable interface. So there is a class implementing clonable interface, and that singleton class is implementing that class. And then you are just trying to clone it. Okay, then it will create a new hash code. So it will break the singleton design pattern, and to resolve that you need to override the clone method, and then you have to throw it from there. You have to throw exception from there, like throw new clone not supported exception, like that you have to throw with a message. So if you throw that, then it will be resolved. Okay, so nobody can able to clone it. If they will try to clone, then they will exception message will be thrown in the console. So like this you can solve this problem. You can make it a break free singleton design pattern. So this is very important. Next comes prototype scope. So prototype scope is very common. It's the Spring Boot is by default singleton in nature, and when you are trying to hit the request endpoint, and if you want to create a new instance on every request hit, then prototype scope is important to use. Okay, so here you can make use of annotation like @scope. You can pass the value as prototype, then it will create a new instance every time you hit it. Okay, so this was it for prototype. Next question was this: memento design pattern, facade design pattern. Okay, these are all a part of behavioral design patterns. So you just need to go through it once. So basic things you have to focus upon, like how and why it is used. So there is a detailed structure given, and if you search on Google, you will get to know everything. If you want me to create a specific video on this, then you can just comment it down. I will create a specific video on this, because it's just an experience video, so I will not go in depth of these design patterns. Okay, then what's the time complexity for tree traversal? So if you see, like if you are traversing through the tree, if you know the structure of the tree, any tree you can take, normal tree or binary tree, any tree if you take, then if there is a traversal, means it will go through each and every node until and unless they are putting any condition, like if this particular node need not to be traveled, then in normal case scenario you have to travel all the nodes. So as it is required to travel all the nodes of that tree, then the time complexity becomes what? It depends upon number of nodes. If there are n number of nodes, then time complexity is O of n. Okay, so this was asked to me. Second question is this. Sorry, next question is this: what is min heap and max heap? So this is a data structure based question. So if you have gone through it, you will be knowing this. Like mean heap, there are a lot of questions based upon this algorithm. It's a very good algorithm actually. So it basically swaps the data based upon the minimum value. So the root value, the root node is there, which is the parent node. So in case of mean heap, it will always try to see, like, is there any child node which is having more value or less value. So based upon max and min heap, I'm telling, if it is finding any child node which is having lesser node value than the current root node, then it will swap the data, and the minimum value will be going at the root node. Okay, and the bigger value will be going towards the child node. So it will be in the ascending order from smaller to bigger. From root node to child node, from parent node to child node, it will go from smaller to bigger. And the reverse happens in case of max heap. Okay, so in case of max heap, the bigger number will become the root, and the smaller numbers will become the child node values. So this is the min heap and max heap. Okay, so if you want to go in details, you can go through that videos on YouTube also. You can go through that, and then you can go through Google also. You will get to know each and everything. Then this question was asked, like, microservice design pattern. What are the types of design patterns have you worked upon in microservices? So there are a lot of design patterns, like choreography design pattern, orchestration design pattern, circuit breaker design pattern, and there are other design patterns as well. So I have made use of these three only. So I have told like I have worked upon these design patterns. So you should be very much thorough on this. Okay. Then this question was asked, to implement circuit breaker design pattern, which library file you need to import. Okay, so you need to for every dependencies that you are using in your project, you need to import certain library for that, right? Let's suppose you are making use of array list, then you have to write import java.util.arraylist. Okay, so it's a util package. From there you are importing the list, array list or linked list features. That's why you are able to use it in your project. So for circuit breaker design pattern to implement, which particular package or library you need to import. So this particular package you need to import Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker library. Okay, so it's a specific library is there for Spring Cloud. So this circuit breaker library is a specific library is attached with Spring Cloud. So that thing you need to implement. Okay, so Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker watches for failing calls. So anywhere, whenever it will check that there is some call failing, so it will keep on watching that. It's like a file watcher, it kind of thing. So it will keep on watching, like is there any call is failing or not. As soon as it finds a call which is failing, it will soon the build it fails. If failure is built up to a specified threshold, then Spring Cloud Circuit Breaker opens the circuit. Okay, as soon as it opens the circuit, that means you will not be able to get the response. So that is the thing. This is the flow. And then yeah, so this was it for the circuit breaker library. Next question, I think it was already told. Yeah, have you worked upon NoSQL? And what's the difference between MySQL and NoSQL? Okay, so one is relational mapping is there, one is non-relational mapping. So in one, we need to have a foreign key constraint in one table with, and there should be a relation with other table. For NoSQL, there should not be any relation. There is like independent tables are there which are not related with each other. And NoSQL, it can handle like lot of data, millions of record, because there is no dependency between the tables. So each table works independently. So it is faster, reliable, and secured as well. Okay, so it all depends upon the requirement. It's not like only NoSQL is better, MySQL is not better. No, it depends upon the conditions and requirements. We are using them based upon that. Next question is importance of multi-threading and how it works. So importance of multi-threading, you know, right? When you have to do parallel processing, then multi-threading helps us to do that. Okay, so thread, you know, right? Thread is an independent part of the same program which has its own stack and CPU time for its execution. Okay, so this is the thread. And then if there is multiple thread trying to access the data, whether it's read or write, then in case of that situations, multi-threading is important for us. And how it works, there is a class. If you want to make it a thread class, you can extend thread or implement runnable interface. Okay, and then it is all depending upon requirement how it works. So if you want to fetch data that may come after a long period of time, you can make use of futures or completable futures. Okay, so if there is a lot of task is there for you, then you can make use of executor framework. Okay, so you can assign certain pool of threads. Okay, and then you can assign particular type of thread pool like fixed thread pool or cache thread pool or scheduled thread pool or single thread pool. So based upon your requirement, you can assign that. So these are the things. Next is a virtual thread. What is virtual thread? So this question was asked to me. So it was introduced in Java 17 only as part of Project Loom. So it was intended to be highly efficient and scalable. So it's allowing for a much higher number of concurrent threads. So in case of normal traditional Java threads, okay, so traditional Java thread doesn't allow large number of concurrent threads to work parallelly. Okay, but virtual threads allows, it's very lightweighted and it allows large number of threads to work parallelly. Okay, so it's very much beneficial in that scenario. Okay, and it works independent of the operating system thread. Operating system thread runs, it's a different thread, and this virtual thread runs independent of that operating system thread. It doesn't interrupt that thread. Okay, and how to start this virtual thread? To start this, we can call this method start virtual thread. Is a separate method which is present within thread class. You can directly call that. Okay, it's a static method present in thread class. You can call this start virtual thread method, and then you can see like your virtual thread is getting started. Next question was this. Okay, what is executor framework? So I think you might be knowing this if you are having more than 4 years or 5 years of experience. So this question will be frequently asked to you in multi-threading environment. So executor framework is actually helping you to do programming, okay, in multi-threaded programming in such a way that in case of normal threads, thread creation, like it's very costly. So if there are 100 tasks, 200 tasks, how can you create so many threads? It's not possible, right? For one thread, if you are creating one task, then for 100 threads you will create 100 tasks, and you are doing thread t equal to new thread, thread t2 equal to new thread. Every time you are creating new object creations. First of all, object creation itself is lot of taking memory in the heap, okay, and that too a thread class you are creating. So it will be very much challenging with respect to memory and the execution flow. So for that sake, we can make use of executor framework, where a certain pool of threads based upon the task which is given to us, you can assign that pool of threads, and then you can make them execute based upon certain methods. Okay, you can put it in executor service, and then you can call submit method or execute method, and then you can make use of internal methods. You can implement runnable interface or callable interface based upon the return type, if it is required or not, and then you can get the data from the futures. Okay, so if you are making use of submit method, then you can't store the data, you can directly fetch it. Then if you are using callable, you can return it back and you can store it in the futures, and then with the help of get method you can fetch the data. You can go in depth. There are a lot of things are presented that, so I can't say everything in this video. It was like a short thing. Next is callable interface. Okay, so callable interface is a kind of functional interface only. So it is having one abstract method called call method. So if you want to return anything back to the caller method, then you can go for callable interface. You can handle exceptions in this. Okay, so it's very much helpful. And this question is also asked, like, what's the difference between runnable and callable interface? Okay, so two three differences are there, you can go through it. Then completable future. So it is a very commonly asked question. So if future is there, then why we are going for completable future? So completable future is basically asynchronous reactive programming. Okay, so it's asynchronous programming basically. So if you want to run parallel task, okay, in such a way that there is a particular thread of pool and that is going to work accordingly. And if you want to run multiple future, if you want to combine multiple futures together, okay, if you want to do future chaining, or if you want to handle any kind of exceptions that was not possible in case of futures. So to handle those scenarios, completable future came in Java 8. Okay, and this completable future actually it waits for a long period of time, and then after a certain threshold you can give the message as well. So there are a lot of features you can go through it in completable future. Okay, so let's jump on to next. What is reduce? So in Stream API, if you have gone through, there are various intermediate operations available with us, right? Like map, flat map, and then there are a lot of intermediate operations are there, any match. Okay, so if you see, reduce method is one of the method which has the accumulator, which has the starting point. So how are you adding multiple? How are you adding numbers from 1 to 10? So first we will assume that you are adding 0 to 1, right? So 0 plus 1 is 1. Then the resultant value 1 will be added to 2, 1 plus 2, 3. Then resultant value will be added to again 3, then 4, then 5, 6. Like that addition happens, okay, in memory. So similar to that, if you make use of reduce method in streams, the first value will be the starting point, like from where you want to do the sum. Okay, it can be sum or addition, multiplication, subtraction, anything, but starting point needs to be given from which number you want to start. So you have to start, if you have to give that number, and then second parameter is the accumulator function. Okay, so there you have to write from lambda function, and then you have to provide like how you want to do, like what logic you want to write, like sum or integer colon colon sum you want to do, or you want to subtract or multiply. That logic you can apply. So basically accumulator function is there and the starting function is there, with the help of which it reduces the calculation and it will give you one single answer, like 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to 10. It will calculate the sum of all and then it will give you one single answer. That is the reduce. Okay, next is asynchronous concept, like how can you communicate between two microservices asynchronously. This is the way SQS or Kafka. Then what are partitions in Kafka? So you have to learn a bit on Kafka as well, how publisher subscriber model work, how data is being flown asynchronously, how data is being stored in topic. So little bit you have to know on that. Okay, then what is consistent hashing? Okay, so this question was also asked. So consistent hashing is basically used in distributed system architecture. So it is basically helps us in efficiently distributing the data among multiple system, multiple nodes. Okay, so nodes are basically the systems. So all the systems are getting connected with each other, and we have to distribute the data efficiently. Okay, and we have, it is basically used to minimize the amount of data that needs to be transferred. So we have to minimize it as much as possible, because if there's large number of data which is getting transferred across the system, then it will be very much difficult to scale it and maintain that much amount of data. Okay, so for there can be a chance of redundant data that can get transferred across multiple nodes. So to avoid that problem, we can help make, and we can make use of consistent hashing, which will continuously monitor and will minimize the amount of data that needs to be transferred. And this allows servers and object to scale without affecting overall system. Okay, and in here both data as well as server undergoes hashing process and mapping them to a shared range of value. There is a shared range of value from 0 to n. Okay, and then it undergoes hashing into that range of values as well. And one of the main goal is to reduce the data redistribution. So again and again data redistribution happens, so it creates a more memory consumption. Okay, it creates a more add-on over the performance. Okay, performance gets reduced as well because of that. So these things are there, and you can go through it, like why consistent hashing is required. It is useful in ensuring that data availability is there in the distributed system, and there is a consistency is present or not in the distributed system. So those all things consistent hashing actually observes and monitor that. Okay, so these are the things. Then Spring Boot versus Spring. So it's a very common question. Every interviewer will ask you this. Why we are going with Spring Boot if we are already having Spring? So I've already told you multiple times. So Spring Boot is having auto configuration feature. They are having rapid application development feature. It will give you production ready features, so that you don't have to focus on configuration. Rather, you can focus on your business logic. Okay. So it is having embedded Tomcat server. Okay, and you can exclude certain server, and if you want to add another server, that also you can do. You can exclude certain packages, that also you can do. A lot of things are present in that. Okay, so next question is this. Okay, so this is also a very important question. It is asked almost every time. Like out of 10 interviews, 4 to 5 interviews I have gone through, I've got this question. So this is important actually. Okay, so cyclic barrier basically allows a number of threads. There can be multiple threads like which is being running. So it cyclic barrier allows a number of threads to wait on each other. Okay, so each and every thread will be waiting. Okay, it allows actually cyclic barrier to wait, to allow the thread, to allow that number of threads to wait on each other, whereas countdown latch allows one or more thread to wait for a number of tasks to complete. Okay, so it will not wait for the threads, for number of threads, that the countdown latch works upon number of tasks to complete. Okay, it allows one or more threads to wait for a particular task to complete. So in short, if I want to tell, then cyclic barrier maintains a count of threads. Okay, it maintains the count of threads, whereas countdown latch maintains a count of tasks, how many tasks is being executed. So it maintains that. So that is a difference between the two. Next question is this streams question. So there is a class subject given, then there is subject name, subject marks, then class student given, which contains name as well as list of subjects. So student can have list of subjects, right? So if you have gone through your school, then class 6, class 7, if you go through there are like 6 to 7 subjects, sometimes 8 subjects, right? So many subjects are there. So if I want to know that in your class and in your section where you have studied, I want to know who got the maximum marks in math subject. How will you find that? So first of all, you will filter all those students who has taken maths. So there can be a chance that few people have opted for other subjects. Those, let's suppose they have opted for arts subject. I'm considering you are in class 9, 10th now. Okay, so they have opted for arts subject, and they are also sitting there in with you due to some reason. Okay, there people have been accumulated in your class. So I want to first filter it out those students who have who are having maths as a subject. Okay, at least maths as a subject. Then you have to filter it out. Then the rest thing you have to do, you have to compare all the marks of the student, then you have to find the maximum marks. So that was the question. You have to give the name of the student who is having the maximum marks in math subject. That was the question asked. So I will attach a video, okay, in this video description, and in the I box, in the cards section also, I will attach the video. You can go through that. I've created a separate dedicated video on this question. It's a very good question, and it is asked in the interview. Okay, so this is very important question. There are a lot of concepts involved in this, so you can go through that video. I will attach it. Okay, so I will not explain each and everything, because otherwise this video will be very long. So this was the question. You have to print student who got maximum marks in maths using streams. Okay, so I will attach the video. You will just go through that. In description box, you will get that video. So how are you approaching client requirements and implementing it? So this was a question asked basically to understand like how I am approaching the requirements which client is giving to us, how we are approaching the problems. So that interviewer was trying to know from. Okay, so you can tell it basically like whatever client was giving us the task, we are just having a discussion with the architect team and with our team, tech team and lead. Then we were coming on to conclusion like which data structure that we have to follow to solve that problem. And then we started focusing upon distributing the task. Then after distributing, we are just seeing the hold of like how much time it will take. Okay, so we were creating sprint for that. We are assigning user stories to all the people, and then we start working. So like that, you can tell your approach. Okay, so how are you approaching towards you completing your requirement which is being taken from the client? Okay, so next question is what all Java 17 features. So if you have used Java 17 feature, then you can tell like yes, these is features you have used. Otherwise you can tell like yes, I worked on only Java 8 or Java 11. Okay, so I have worked on Java 17, so I have told. So a question was asked on that. So I told few things like I have made use of Jakarta. So Java X persistence API got changed to Jakarta API. So those things we have made use of in entity layer. Then we have made use of switch statements, like we can have multiple cases with comma separated. We can have lambda function in switch case. Sorry. So these type of things are there. They seal and record, okay, which are there on interface. So those things are also there. So you can go through it, Java 17 features. It's very cool. You will get to learn a lot of things. Then these are what kind of development patterns have you worked upon, like domain driven design, test driven development, behavior driven development. So these kind of questions are also asked. They will give you like what is DDD, what is TDD, what is BDD. So you need to know the full form of it, and then you need to know what does that actually mean. So domain driven design is basically work on the central domain. Okay, so what the problem is all about, concentrating on the task and then simplifying the problem, and then we have to design it. Okay, we have to make it domain driven. Okay, so main focus is towards a central task. So what all task is there, then we have to drive it. Okay, so that is domain driven. Test driven development is what the whole and sole focus of test driven development is. First you have to write the test cases. Okay, and understanding and analyzing the requirement, create your own test cases, understand what are the requirements, create test cases based upon that, and then try to execute those test cases, then start writing your actual code. That is a test driven development. Okay, and behavior driven development is an extension of test driven development basically. So in that we are working when we are developing by taking into consideration what is the requirement from the stakeholder, so that stakeholder can understand our requirement and whatever we have done. So thinking into that perspective in mind, we are focusing upon implementation, like given, when, then. So considering those things, we have to implement this behavior driven development. Okay, next is service registry, service discovery. So these are the concepts in microservice, like how are you doing service registry. So basically you are registering in a microservice so that it will continuously monitor what all changes has been there. So service discovery basically discovers the microservice for monitoring purpose, and then if there is down or if it is up, okay, if scaling is required or not. So these things it will be observing. So first of all, service registry should be there to register the service, and then service discovery will come to discover the service for upscaling, downscaling, or for further uses. Okay, so these two are interconnected with each other. So this comes under microservice. So I think you have got the idea on this. So this was the whole and soul. I think it's completed. Yeah. So this was it, and these were the questions. think it will be overwhelming, like a lot of question has been asked, so it was like rapid fire round, so a lot of question has been asked very quickly. So the whole interview round was for 1 hour. Okay, so yeah, it was very long interview. So yeah, you will get to learn a lot of things. So give interviews as much as possible. If you give so many interviews, no, you will get to learn a lot of things. You will gain knowledge. If you are not able to answer, you will gain experience, but you will not lose. Okay, so don't feel that if I don't able to answer, then why should I give interviews? No, give interviews. You will learn a lot from that. Few questions you will be able to answer, few will not be able to answer. If you are not able to answer those questions, you will get to learn that thing, right? Just think like if you're not giving interview, you will not be learning new things from that interview. So keep those things in mind. Interview question might be very much helpful to solve any problems in your project, or in future it may be very much helpful. So give every interview coming in your way, okay, whatever interview is coming. So that will be helpful for you as well as your future on. So I hope you liked my video. If you like my video, please like, share, and subscribe. So it's Devjit Roy. I'm a senior technical consultant at ENY. So if you have any problem, any doubt, just comment it down below. I will be very much happy to help you. Okay. So I will see you in the next video, in the next set of concepts. So it's Devjit Roy signing off. Bye bye.